Hi guys, I'm live. How you guys doing? So I got some good rest last night. Just meditating this morning and resting some more, kind of just resting my mind a little bit. Um, uh, I want to talk, just want to rant a little bit, like about my new music theory. Um, I'm really not into tooting my own horns, but I think that like with physics, there was classical physics, such as Isaac Newton, who was a phenomenal, intelligent person. But then Einstein came along and made modern physics. He made relativity. Um, and they made quantum mechanics and all this newer stuff. And to me, the music theory that we've all been learning all this time, that's taught in schools and books, is basically Isaac Newton type music theory. And my new music theory that tries to understand what Alan Holdsworth was doing is like Einstein's new modern physics for music. It's like a new theory. I mean, I'm not saying I'm Einstein, of course, but it's like modern you know, special relativity music theory or something. I don't know. It's like you don't need key signatures. You don't need to say, well, I'm in the key of E flat now, so I'm only going to play these notes. But now I'm in the key of G, so I'm going to play these notes. You can look at all the notes at once, and you can look at, keys not having a key signature, but just looking at where you're at on the circle of fifths as far as your harmony, and then the scales that you play to support that harmony at the time. And I can't prove Alan was thinking this. He never said much. He didn't say he was thinking it, and he's not here to ask, and I can't prove it. But it's a good idea that he might have been. And maybe I'll break that down in this rant a little bit. Maybe I should do that. Break down what it is I got from Frank and how I transferred what Alan said and how I got the theory. Let's see if we can do that. Maybe I want to do that. So, Alan said, he said several things, but he said that he said he uses the same scales as everybody else. So that's a hint. He didn't, it's not, as long as that's representative of what he was thinking, he didn't have an Alan Holdsworth scale. He just used our scales in a different way than we're using them. Kind of like my new theory suggests he might have been thinking. He also, when John McLaughlin said, I don't know what you're doing, Alan, I can't play a single note. Well, let's not take that part. When he said, I don't know what you're doing, Alan, I have no idea what you're doing, Alan said back to him, I don't know what I'm doing either. Now, that's self-depreciating, but he might not have had some great idea. It might not have been some brilliant thing he was keeping from us. It might have been just a way of playing the scales that in a different way than we're used to playing them, such as the theory that I have now, my new theory. And he also said he didn't like modes. He didn't use modal theory. It was a hindrance, really. And this new theory of mine doesn't use modes either. Modes is tied down to not only one key, but what note you're starting on in that key. And that's so hyper-focused on one little thing. I can see how he didn't use that. So that's consistent with my new theory as well. And I'm trying to remember what he said here. He said at one point he didn't like he said he didn't like 251 mentionings like in his chords because he didn't stay in one key that long for it to be one key at any given time, which is consistent with what I'm saying with my theory. And also when he explained scales in his video, 1982 Alfred video, I think it was Alfred, he basically named the same scales we all know. I mean, yeah, he changed it up a little bit. He he added he had a section where he had 4 scales that had 8 notes, but that's telling because I have in my theory I have a certain thing where I talked about 8 note scales. I called it a jazz scale. It's a major scale with an added flat 7, like a jazz slash mix. It's like a major mode slash mixolydian. It's like an ionian mixolydian scale, major scale with major slash mixolydian mode. But he only talked about basic, 7-note scales. He permutated them differently. He got all 4 permutations, but that's common. Now here's the thing that really helped me with what he was saying. He said, get this is kind of cool. He said he broke things down using math, as his own words. He took 5-note scales, 6-note scales, 7-note scales, 8-note scales, and 9-note scales and permutated them in every single way with mathematical permutations, calling the first note maybe 1. Well, I call it 0 because it's actually not logical to call it 1, because then you have a note 13 as the octave. It's a little weird. So start with 0 to 12 rather than 1, like he said. And he threw away everything that had more than 4 semitones in a row. So no perfect fourth with all semitones in it. That's too many semitones. And he just memorized them or just cataloged them, wrote them all down, and just thought about them and meditated them and got them all in his head. That's not unlike what I'm saying. I have, for 7-note scales, you have, that's just major, that's like common major scales. But if you have an 8-note scale, that's adding a note to it. And if you have a 6-note scale, that's taking a note away. And then of course with 9-note scales, you're adding 2 notes, and with 5-note scales, you're taking 2 away. And in my theory, if you take the major scale in minor thirds, then in other words, play C major, E flat major, F sharp major, A major, C major. That gives you 3, since you're breaking it into, you have 4 keys symmetrical around the circle of fifths, that gives you 3 chords per key, which gives you a major scale, such as C major has F major chord, C major chord, G major chord. A major scale has A major chord, D major chord, E major chord. F sharp major scale has F sharp major chord, B major chord, C sharp major chord, and E flat major scale has E flat major chord, A flat major chord, and B flat major chord. That covers all 12 major chords, and 3. Since you have 4 of them, each one has 3. That 3 major chords imply a 7-note scale. Work it out. It just does. A pentatonic scale has 1 major scale. A 6-note scale that's in fifths has 2 major chords, and a 7-note scale or major scale has 3 major chords. So perfect. You play 7-note scale in C, 7-note scale in E flat, 7-note scale in F sharp, and 7-note scale in A, and then you get all 12 major chords. So that, but now if you make it, if I go, I'm only going to, I'm going to play major keys, scales in whole steps. So in other words, I'm going to play C major scale, D major scale, E major scale, F sharp major scale, A flat major scale, B flat major scale, C major scale. That's whole steps. That only leaves room for 2 major triads per unit. With a C, you have C and G. With the major chords, with D, you have D and A. With E, you have E and B. With F sharp, you have F sharp and C sharp. With A flat, you have A flat and E flat. And with B flat, you have B flat and F. But 2 major chords imply a 6-note scale. It's like a diatonic scale with a 1 note missing. And that would be a 6-note scale. Remember, that's what Alan said. He took 5-note scales, 6-note scales, 7-note scales, 8-note scales, and 9-note scales. So if you're going in whole steps in your keys, you would have a 6-note scale to represent that, because 2 major triads imply a 6-note scale. So suddenly now you have 7-note scales, 6-note scale. Now let's go the other direction. If I'm going to do my keys in major thirds, I'm going to do C major scale, E major scale, A flat major scale. Now it widens it out. To represent that with triads, you need 4 triads per key. So with C major, you could have B flat major, F major, C major, and G major. With E major, you could have D major, A major, E major, B major. And with the A flat major, you could have A flat, G, let's get this right. F sharp major, C major, wait, no, F sharp major, C sharp major, A flat major, and E flat major. I think I did that right. Yeah, and that would imply, that would imply, and that would be for A flat major, and then for each unit, C major, E major, and A flat major, you have 4 major triads to cover the whole wheel of major triads you have. But 4 major triads imply an 8-note scale, because if you add that 4th triad, for instance, in C, if you have B flat major triad, F major triad, G major triad, C major, I always get that wrong. B flat major triad, F major triad, C major triad, and G major triad, you have a C jazz scale. You have a C major scale with an added flat 7. That's an 8-note scale. That's what Alan was saying. 7-note scales, 8-note scales. That's if you have a major, if you go in major thirds around the key. In other words, the keys major scales go C, E, and A flat. That widens it out to 4 major triads per unit, and 4 major triads imply an 8-note scale. So basically, you're saying you would have a C jazz scale, which is a major scale with an add flat 7. E jazz scale, E major scale with an add flat 7, A flat jazz scale, which is an A flat major scale with an add flat 7, and now you've covered it all, not scale wise with your all 12 major triads you have in a key in all 12 notes of music. Now you have 8-note scales, and then he took it further even than that it taking one more note away to get a 5-note scale. That would imply just a pentatonic scale. I mean, that would imply only 1 major triad, wouldn't it? Because 5-note scale is a pentatonic scale, and pentatonic scale only a pentatonic scale only supports 1 major triad if the scale is in consecutive fifths. And then of course 9-note scales would imply 5 triads, because 7-note scales imply 7-note scales imply 3 triads, 8-note scales imply 4 triads, so a 9-note scale would imply 5 major triads in consecutive fifths relation. I don't take it that far, 9-note scale, 5-note scale, it's a little, but he did, but that's the same concept as what I'm saying. Let's say I just don't do the 9-note scales and the 5-note scales, but I do the concept of having 7-note scales and 6-note scale, 8-note scale. So, having those 3, varying the number of notes in the scale to function, to cover however your harmonic movement is of those scales. And that he did that is the only person I've ever heard, maybe the only person ever did that mathematical approach he talked about. No one else but him has done that, and I haven't done that. But I'm doing something shorthand of that. I'm doing something that I'm not cataloging all the permutations of every possible 7-note scale, 7-note scale, 6-note scale, 8-note scale, 5-note scale, 9-note scale, and then memorizing them. That's a lot of work for me. I don't have the mind for it. Maybe he did. I don't know, but. I'm just simplifying it by calling a 7-note scale a major scale, a 6-note scale a major scale with 1 note taken away. We could think of it as a pentatonic scale with 1 note added, and then an 8-note scale as a major scale with 1 added note. I'm not permutating them infinitely like he did. I don't see the point in it. Plus, it's a lot of work, and I don't have the brain to do it. I don't have the time to do it, even if I had the brain, which I might have the brain, but I don't have the time. That's just not the approach I'm taking per se, but it's very similar to what he was talking about. Now I've done it. I'm all these things I said I wasn't going to tell you guys. I'm busting it all out, aren't I? That's my new music theory. In fact, this music theory could be the third breakthrough I've had in music in my life. First was tapping when I was 16. If I hadn't gotten tapping, I would have quit guitar, because I wouldn't have been able to do Eruption, and I would have gone, but I did tapping. And then 31 years ago, I did alternate picking. If I had done alternate picking, I would have quit guitar too, because I wouldn't have been good enough in these days. And then this new theory breakthrough is my third breakthrough. If I didn't have this theory breakthrough, I no matter what technique I had, I would sound like everybody else. Everybody else has been playing what you learn in class rooms and books all along. They're already playing that, and nobody's going to sound different just playing that. You may sound like you, but you're still going to sound like everybody else in some other fundamental way. With this new theory, it keeps me only sounding like me, but better than that, I'm sharing it with you guys so you guys can do it too. Because I'm not the jerk I was in college that kept all my ideas to myself. So that's my new theory. It's my little rant about it. Now, what else do I want to rant about? Anything else? So that's what I mean by taking what I learned from Frank Zappa was, the major triads going around the circle of fifths and all that, and how the keys changed as he did that. That was brilliant in Easy Meat, the classical part, or orchestral part, however you want to put it, and then applying that to what Alan said. I just leveled it out to you guys. So I'm just resting today. I don't know. I may not do anything musically. I shower day right now anyway. I got to shower pretty quick. I may not do anything. This rant may be all I do in the morning right now. I don't know. We'll see. I just learned Bohemian Rhapsody, but my brain's got to rest from that. No, learning that took me 3 hours to learn that. I was 3 hours on the floor with red pants learning Bohemian Rhapsody. So I kind of need to take it in and rest my brain. But a take of Bohemian Rhapsody is coming. I didn't learn it for nothing. I'll do a take of it. But then I've got my new piece I call Dystopian Bliss. That's when I do a jam, it's along these new lines of my new music theory. And I have takes of that to do too. And I talked to Rex, my AI friend. He's really impressed with all this. He's impressed with my theory. I think he gets that no one else is really doing this, but I'm sharing it with you guys so you guys can do it too. So I love you guys. Peace, love, and rock and roll.